It was a vibrant and bustling morning at the majestic royal palace, where visitors from every corner of the globe converged to witness the iconic ceremony of the changing of the guard. The atmosphere was one of grandeur and tradition, with imposing iron gates gleaming under the sun. Soldiers in impeccably polished uniforms marching in flawless unison, and the steady cadence of their boots echoing across the cobblestone courtyard. Amid the throng of excited tourists, flashes from cameras illuminated the scene. Youngsters gazed in wide-eyed amazement, and hushed conversations floated about the stoic sentinels who remained utterly immobile, resembling ancient sculptures frozen in time. Right in the heart of this lively gathering stood a fella named Kevin. He was boisterous, self-assured, and always on the hunt for ways to draw the spotlight onto himself. Kevin embodied the archetype of the attention-seeking traveler, reveling in humorous antics and lighthearted mischief to distinguish himself from the crowd. As he observed the royal guards with their unyielding discipline, a sense of frustration bubbled up within him. Why do they just stand there like robots, unresponsive to everything around them? It's absurd, he grumbled to his companions, who responded with uneasy chuckles. Kevin inched nearer to one of the guards, flapping his hand directly in front of the soldier's impassive gaze. The guard, adhering strictly to his rigorous training, offered no reaction whatsoever. The more Kevin persisted with his provocations, the deeper his irritation grew. These guards were renowned for their unbreakable composure, and brushing off such annoyances was an integral aspect of their solemn responsibilities. Yet to Kevin, this immovable stance presented an irresistible dare. "This bloke reckons he's invincible," Kevin proclaimed boisterously, erupting into laughter as a handful of onlookers turned their heads toward him. His friends appeared increasingly uneasy, attempting to tug him away from the spectacle. "Come on, let's move on, Kevin. This isn't amusing anymore," one of them urged, but Kevin's obstinacy held firm. Earlier that very day, while browsing a nearby trinket store, Kevin had impulsively purchased a tiny vial of ultra-spicy hot sauce. Marketed as a quirky memento, now clutching it tightly, a mischievous scheme began to crystallize in his thoughts. "Let's test if this gets a rise out of him," he muttered under his breath. His friends implored him to reconsider, their voices laced with concern, but Kevin dismissed their pleas outright. With a swift twist, he uncapped the bottle and, in a flash of recklessness, flung a modest splash of the fiery condiment toward the guard's visage. In that instant, the world seemed to halt. Gasps rippled through the assembled spectators. The guard's features twitched ever so slightly as the pungent liquid dotted areas perilously close to his eyes, delivering an unmistakable burn. Nevertheless, loyal to his indoctrinated regimen, the guard preserved his rigid stance. He fluttered his eyelids frantically to dispel the irritant and subtly inclined his head, discreetly summoning aid. Kevin lingered there, smirking triumphantly, convinced he had executed a benign jest. "Look at that, he's not so unbreakable after all," he announced brazenly, anticipating applause or at least some amusement. Instead, an eerie quiet descended. Whispers soon evolved into overt disapproval. "That's utterly repulsive," someone murmured. "How dare he behave like that?" another voiced, as smartphones emerged to capture the unfolding drama. The crowd retreated, affording the guards some breathing room, while casting scornful glances at Kevin. His companions, now mortified, distanced themselves further. Kevin's smug expression dissolved as the lack of mirth became apparent. "Chill out, folks. It's merely hot sauce," he defended, forcing a chuckle to downplay the incident. However, the ambiance had shifted irrevocably. A security personnel from the palace advanced purposefully, and Kevin sensed the oppressive burden of countless disapproving stares bearing down on him. Little did Kevin realize that the ensuing 10 minutes would irrevocably alter the trajectory of his existence. The royal guard maintained his unyielding poise, his countenance serene despite the acute discomfort inflicted by the hot sauce that had grazed his sensitive skin. His extensive preparation had equipped him to endure myriad distractions and discomforts without faltering. But this intrusion was uniquely vexing. The zesty fluid seared his epidermis, and although his demeanor betrayed little, the emerging flush on his cheeks revealed the torment he silently bore. The murmurs among the onlookers intensified. Fingers pointed accusingly at Kevin, their disdain palpable. "How could anyone stoop so low in disrespect?" a lady remarked under her breath. That unfortunate sentinel didn't merit such treatment, another chimed in, as recording devices persisted in documenting the episode. Kevin, oblivious to the escalating severity, emitted a tentative laugh, scanning the vicinity for any semblance of solidarity. Hey, it was nothing but a gag, he shrugged off. Yet his friends refrained from joining in the humor. Rather, they retreated even more, evading the collective censure of the assembly. In the interim, the afflicted guard executed a discreet manual cue, alerting his proximate comrades. Moments later, a fellow guard materialized to assume his position, guaranteeing the ritual's seamless continuation. The beleaguered guard, upholding his regal bearing, proceeded with measured steps toward relief, accompanied by a palace healthcare specialist. Kevin observed this development, a transient pang of remorse flickering across his features. All right, I hadn't anticipated it being such a fuss, he whispered to the ether, but the repercussions were irreversible. The bystanders transitioned from subdued commentary to vocal condemnation. You ought to feel profound shame, an older gentleman bellowed. That's no way to handle someone fulfilling their obligations. A youthful female appended, her tone brimming with indignation. Kevin's pulse quickened. He detested being the focal point of negativity, particularly when the attention turned sour. It's not as if I inflicted real injury, he countered weakly, averting gazes from the throng. Yet, his justification only exacerbated the hostility. Abruptly, a pair of palace security enforcers materialized. They were formidable in stature, their attire impeccably neat and authoritative. One advanced toward Kevin with a grave demeanor. Sir, we require discussion with you, the enforcer stated resolutely. Kevin stiffened. What? About me? It was merely a trivial jest, he objected, but the enforcer remained unmoved. This is far from humorous, the enforcer retorted. You've committed an assault on a royal guard, constituting a grave violation. Kevin's complexion blanched. Assault. That term resonated with far greater severity than he had envisioned. His thoughts whirled in search of an escape, but the enforcers afforded no leeway for rationalizations. One motion for him to relocate aside, sequestered from the multitude. As Kevin complied reluctantly, he could perceive the piercing scrutiny of the crowd trailing him. For the initial occasion, the profundity of his misconduct commenced to permeate his consciousness. This transcended a mere innocuous caper. It was morphin into the most harrowing episode of his lifetime. Kevin was guided by the duo of palace security personnel to a secluded zone beyond the ornate barriers, distanced from the primary assemblage. As they navigated the lustrous corridors, his cardiac rhythm thundered within his ribcage. He persistently endeavored to vindicate his conduct. Listen, I harbored no intent to inflict damage, he articulated anxiously, his timbre quivering. It was solely a jest, a bit of levity, you understand. Yet the personnel proffered no rejoinder. Their austere visages remained immutable, and their reticence merely amplified Kevin's trepidation. He couldn't dispel the notion that matters were spiraling beyond control. Please, gentlemen, he ventured once more. It's not as though actual harm befell anyone. Concurrently, the external multitude hummed with discourse. Individuals persisted in deliberating the recent occurrence, and recordings of the event were disseminating rapidly via digital networks. In mere minutes, the visuals proliferated globally, accompanied by descriptors such as visitor insults royal sentinel and outrageous conduct at the Citadel. The communal retort was instantaneous. Multitudes engaged in commentary, redistribution, and articulation of their ire digitally. This is intolerable, one individual inscribed. These sentinels devote their existences to this vocation, and this is their recompense? Another contributor supplemented. Individuals of this ilk are unworthy of accessing such venerable locales. As Kevin occupied a diminutive, unadorned chamber alongside the enforcers, he instinctively consulted his mobile device. His countenance plummeted upon beholding the deluge of alerts. His identity was ascending in popularity. His likeness permeated the web, and the feedback was anything but benevolent. You're a blemish on society. I trust this individual receives due retribution. Who perpetrates such an act? Kevin experienced a surge of alarm, enveloping him. This deviated markedly from his anticipations. He presumed others would deem his escapade comical, perhaps even acclaim him. Instead, he endured universal condemnation on an expansive magnitude. His online profiles brimmed with vitriolic communications, and even his acquaintances were disassociating. Externally, the afflicted sentinel, William, received attention from palace medical practitioners. Notwithstanding the agony, he preserved his equanimity, conversing courteously with those encircling him. I'm all right, he asserted. It's merely transient unease. However, his decorum merely augmented the collective empathy. Clips of William, serenely departing post-assault, circulated digitally, with individuals extolling his poise and forbearance. Within the Citadel, Kevin's predicament deteriorated. One enforcer positioned a dossier before him. "You're facing indictment for a significant transgression," the enforcer declared. "Assaulting a royal sentinel is an offense. We'll additionally notify the consulate, given your status as an international guest." Kevin's mandible slackened. "The consulate? Are you earnest?" It was merely a jest, but the enforcers disregarded his pretexts. They elucidated that legislation viewed pranks gravely, particularly those impugning a national emblem. Kevin reclined in his seat, his cognition swirling. Merely 10 minutes prior, he had been jesting with his comrades, deeming himself astute. Now, his existence disintegrated, and the entirety of his deeds' repercussions cascaded upon him. Kevin lingered in the compact, barren enclosure, gazing vacantly at the dossier proffered. The phrase, "assault on a royal sentinel," appeared to leap from the parchment, despite the enforcer's composed elucidation. His digits quivered faintly as he gripped his phone, navigating the incessant barrage of hostile remarks and missives inundating his digital presence. The erstwhile audacious voyager now embodied a mere specter of his former self. "This cannot be authentic," he soliloquized, sensing the confines constricting around him. Scarcely an hour earlier, he had relished his sojourn, sharing mirth with his associates and perceiving invulnerability. Presently, all unraveled with alarming velocity. The enforcers re-emerged with somber countenances. "We've liaised with the consulate," one apprised him. "They'll be apprised of the circumstances. Full cooperation is imperative for resolution." Kevin's viscera plummeted. "Resolution? What signifies that?" he erupted. "I'll tender an apology, all right. I'll remit a penalty or such. Let's conclude this." He discerned the hysteria in his inflection, yet the enforcers remained steadfast. "Regrets don't nullify your deeds." The alternate enforcer articulated plainly, "You impugn not solely a sentinel, but a sovereign heritage. Statutes exist for such infractions." Kevin slumped rearward, massaging his visage with his palms. He contemplated his comrades who had flanked him during the caper. Where resided they now? He retrieved his device and dispatched a succinct communique. "Can you lads assist me herein?" The responses materialized promptly, but diverged from his aspirations. "Apologies, Kevin. We cannot entangle ourselves. This is your quagmire, chap. We cautioned you." Kevin sensed a constriction in his pharynx. He was isolated in this turmoil. Externally, the globe progressed expeditiously. The recording of Kevin's folly had achieved virality, transcending local confines to international spheres. Journalistic entities commenced adopting the narrative, disseminating titles like "Visitor's Insolent Jest," "Boomerangs" dramatically. Societal sentiment was ferocious. Denizens from diverse strata contributed, labeling him negligent, haughty, and privileged. Kevin's superior at his domicile also discerned the episode. In his electronic correspondence awaited a missive that deepened his despondency. "Esteemed Mr. Wilson, owing to the adverse scrutiny your conduct has engendered upon our enterprise, we are severing your tenure forthwith." "What?" Kevin murmured, his timbre fracturing. Employment termination hadn't even traversed his contemplation. That, concurrently, William, the wounded sentinel, reposed tranquilly in the Citadel's therapeutic sector. The irritation had abated, but the episode's recollection persisted. A superior enforcer queried him, "Do you desire to pursue additional indictments against the Voyager?" William pondered briefly. "I seek no vengeance," he responded serenely. "I merely aspire he gleans from this. Certain individuals fail to comprehend respect's worth." Kevin, nonetheless, distanced himself from enlightenment presently. As he endured grappling with the ramifications, he apprehended his erstwhile idyllic getaway had transmuted into an ordeal, and it constituted merely the inception. Kevin's intellect surged as the intervals protracted in the minuscule chamber. The circumstance's solemnity commenced to infiltrate. yet he clung tenaciously to the optimism that this might somehow dissipate. He had encountered predicaments previously, trifling matters that invariably resolved post-apologies. Assuredly, this couldn't diverge substantially, correct? His ruminations were disrupted when the portal swung ajar, admitting 2 additional functionaries. One self-identified as a delegate from the indigenous constabulary, whilst the other served as an intermediary from his nation's consulate. The ambiance intensified with each footfall. Mr. Wilson, the constable initiated, his intonation balanced yet resolute. We scrutinize the visuals of your conduct, and we must clarify that your deeds constitute a grave infraction here. Impugning a royal sentinel transcends mere local custom. It's a legal transgression. Kevin gulped audibly, striving to uphold his poise. I harbored no intent to violate statutes, he retorted hastily. I vow it was solely a jest. I didn't anticipate it would— Intentions are irrelevant, the constable interjected, his mien unwavering. The repercussions of your deeds matter. This concerns not your perceived humor. It's regarding the injury and disdain you inflicted. The consular delegate advanced, his visage more compassionate, yet equally grave. Kevin, I'm present to aid you, but comprehend the profundity you're confronting. Indictments for assault and communal impropriety have been lodged. These aren't trivial allegations.